Hey guys, it's Jordan with your weekly refuge video. Hope you're doing well. I'm excited to get into it. We're in week 2 of our series, Love and Hate. And I want to talk about awkward conversations. You guys know me, you know I kind of like awkward conversations. I think they're funny, awkward moments. I try to create them sometimes just for fun. But I remember one time about 2 months ago, it was a big night at Refuge, big attendance. Most people were here that night. And I just got done preaching. We went to group, and I'm in the lobby. There's about 75, 80 people out there. And I'm wandering around talking to everybody, glad-handing, talking to my leaders, asking how their groups went. And I walked up to Carrie, and before I even got a word out of my mouth, she looked at me and said, "You've got a booger in your nose." And I felt, and sure enough, there it was, right? So I took care of it. But I looked at Carrie, and I simply said, "Thank you. You're a good friend." I really appreciate it when people do stuff like that. I'm kind of mad that none of the rest of y'all said anything as I wandered around with that thing hanging out. Listen, whether I have food in my teeth, mustard in my hair, my fly is down, or I have toilet paper on my shoe, like all these things have happened to me, I'm always thankful and grateful when someone crosses that line of awkwardness and comes up and says, "Hey, you got to take care of that," right? Saving me from future embarrassment. I love it. I'm grateful. I appreciate it. Now, on the flip side, that's not always easy to do. To walk up to somebody and kind of call them out, even if you're trying to spare them and help them. Now, it's one thing if they just have food in their teeth. It's another thing if it's a big issue. For example, what if you have a friend who's in a relationship and you know that boyfriend or girlfriend are not good for them? How do you go about speaking up to them? What if you know somebody's making a decision in their life that's not going to lead anywhere good? What do you say? What if they're about to do something that's really going to hurt them or get them in trouble? Do you go tell somebody else for their sake? What do you do in that moment? See, this is a different ballgame. This is a bigger deal. Let's say your siblings start hanging out with the wrong crowd. How do you speak to them about it? How do you stop that from happening? And do you even know if it's your place in these situations? A lot of the time, then, we just avoid the conversation and we don't do anything. A few reasons for that. Number one, we're afraid we might lose the friendship. Nobody wants to be the jerk. Nobody wants to be mean and have somebody be upset with them because you spoke up out of turn. Number two, maybe whatever they're doing you've struggled with in the past or you're currently struggling with. And you think, well, what right do I have to say anything about that issue? Maybe you're afraid they just won't listen. So why bother? Why risk the conflict? And at the end of the day, you just don't know what to say, so you don't say anything at all. Now, that's some of you. Now, others of you, and I can relate to this, you speak up way too much. You have an opinion, and you think everybody should hear it. So you walk up to somebody, and you just let them know, hey, here's an issue. You need to fix this. And you may mean well, but you don't say it in a loving, humble, gentle way, and they don't even listen. And so there was no point in saying it in the first place. Now, if you struggle with this issue, you see situations, you want to speak up, you want to help, and you don't know what to say, or you put your foot in your mouth when you do, you're not alone. Everybody has been there. Everybody knows this feeling, especially walking in the church, as we're all trying to spur each other on to be better ambassadors and representations of Jesus Christ. You're not alone. But what if we could find an answer? What if there was an approach we could take to difficult conversations that were healthy and brought blessing and good and led to a good place for those that hurt us? I get it. Nobody wants to be a hater. Nobody wants to be a snitch. Nobody wants to be the bad guy. We want our reputation to be better than that. We want it to be known for love. So if that's the case, how do we approach these situations in a way that's good for everybody? As always, I'm glad you asked, and we will go to our Bibles to find the answer. All right, so last time we met, we talked about how we want to be known for love. We want love to be the center of our reputation. No matter how fun or even trendy hating on others is, we know there's a better way. But if love is the goal, then how are we supposed to act? How are we supposed to talk and speak up when somebody's doing something bad, dangerous, or stupid? maybe we should just avoid them. This is what our culture would say. Hey, it's none of your business. Who are you to judge? Let them live their life. But we all sort of know, especially instinctively with the people closest to us, that's not always the best course of action. If someone's standing in the road and I see a bus coming at them, whether they like it or not, I'm going to warn them and tell them, I think there's a better course of action for you than to stand on that road and get hit by the bus. So we want to get involved, we want to act. But what do? Well, Paul, who we've been looking at in this series, had a lot to say to the church in Galatia, which is modern-day Turkey, and he wrote a letter to them. And in Galatians 6:1, he had this insight to share. Dear brothers and sisters, if another believer is overcome by sin, you who are godly should gently and humbly help that person back onto the right path. And then he warns, be careful not to fall into the same temptation they're dealing with yourself. Paul's saying to the Galatians, if you have a friend who shares the same values, claims to walk the same way you do, and they slip up, and they're doing something that's harmful, it is your responsibility not just to speak up, but to get involved and to help them get back on the right track, to help them get back to what God says is best for their life. That's bigger than just worrying about what to say. Now, a few things Paul is not saying. Number one, it is not your responsibility to fix everybody. All right? If you try and they push back, well, then you might need to reevaluate and say, well, that didn't go so well. I might have to change my tactic here or cut my losses. They're not ready to hear that right now. Number two, this is going to take wisdom. A lot of people get in situations, and by trying to help, you might find yourself dealing with the same temptation, same struggles, same bad consequences yourself if you're not careful. But here's the point Paul's trying to make. With gentleness and humility, you and I can help people who are struggling making poor decisions and to help them get back on the right track. He goes on to say this, share each other's burdens and in this way obey the law of Christ. So how do we help people get back on track? Well, we share their burden. What does that look like? So before the shutdown, I like to go to the gym, and sometimes I try to lift heavier than I probably should, right? Your ego gets the best of you. You're really trying to push out a set. And in that moment, if I'm not with a friend or somebody I know, I look for a spotter. This is somebody who looks like they know what they're doing. They can carry some heavy weight. And I just tell them, hey, if I drop this on myself, will you come yank it off of me? And they say, absolutely, absolutely. That's what we're talking about. Somebody who can help carry the burden, who can help lift the weight. That's what you need to be to the people who are struggling around you. Paul cared deeply about this church in Galatia. He knew that the most loving thing to do was for people to get involved in each other's lives in a loving way. We owe it to each other, he even says, to get involved. We need one another. Not just to point out what's going wrong, but to get in the trenches and actually help. If you're a Christian, you're to do far more than stand back and criticize. You're to get in there and help people carry their burdens, help them in their issues. We don't just point fingers, we share burdens. Again, some of you are not afraid to speak up. That's easy for you. Well, fine. That's not the important part here. That's why Paul put these two words, we should be gentle and humble, meaning what we say is just as important as how we say it. The loving act is to say something without sounding judgmental or arrogant or self-righteous. Being kind, helpful, encouraging, that shows people we want to help them out of love. And you're more likely to get somewhere that way. Hard conversations aren't easy, but avoiding a hard conversation, that's not loving. Enjoying a hard conversation by putting somebody down, making them look bad, making yourself feel better, that's not loving. So the point is learning to ask this question. Am I showing love to this person? When you approach somebody and you want to point out an issue in their life, you want to help them, are you doing it out of love? Are you showing love? Love pushes us to talk about difficult things. And it'll push us to act in a way that the other person understands why you're there, because you love them. Now, why would I tell you to do this? Well, because I'm a Christian. I'm a follower of Jesus Christ, and you claim to be as well. And this is what Jesus tells us to do. More importantly, this is what Jesus does. In Matthew 11:28, he says, "Come to me, all who are weary and who are weighed down with burdens." He says, I'll help you out. He says, I will give you rest. What's more, he says, let me teach you. Why? Because I am humble and gentle at heart, and I will give you rest for your soul. Jesus models this. Jesus did this for us on the cross. He does this for us in our sanctification every day. He loves you. He wants to help you. He's not there to knock you down, to blast you with his words, and he could. He's there to help you carry your burden. In fact, he'll take your burden for you, give you a load he says is much easier. That's why we do this. So what is this supposed to look like? How can you begin to put this into practice? You might already be thinking of a friend, a situation that needs addressing, and you want to help. So what do? Well, you need to let love be your filter. We all know what it is to put a filter on Snapchat or Instagram. You put it on and immediately it changes the way you see everything and everyone. That's what you need to do. You need to look at the situation, look at that person with love as your filter. Here's a few action steps then, if that's the case. When you look at that person, you look at that situation with love as your filter, you need to ask yourself, number one, if love's my filter, what does my involvement even look like? Should I get involved? This is going to be a gut check for you. It'll check your motivations. Am I there just to point out that I'm right, that I'm better, to really stick it to them? Or do I really, really want to help? This can be tricky to figure out for sure. So all of these, use your parents, use your life group leaders, other adults you trust. That's why we're here. We love you. We want to help. Number one, let love be your filter for your involvement in the first place, should you even get involved and say something. Number two, let love be the filter for the words you use. Ask yourself, how would I want someone else to speak to me? What kind of words would I want them to say? Right? You don't want to just get in there and throw shade and tear somebody down. You want to build them up with those words, even if you're trying to repair somewhere where they're broken. Let them know you're there to carry their burdens. This is all going to take a heart of love, because some of these situations are hard. They're frustrating, right? They break your heart. They make you mad. I get it. But if love is the filter, it'll change the way you handle even the hard stuff. You can spark hope instead of casting destruction on somebody. After that, so use love to question your involvement in the first place. Use love to filter the words you should use, the motivation of your heart. And then number three, let love be your filter for your actions, and this is important, your reactions. Because it doesn't always go, the picture-perfect conversation you think you're going to have. You're going to need to keep love constantly your filter when it comes to reactions. Chances are they won't just need your words, they're going to need your help. And this is going to be a long process of getting involved. You have to ask yourself a few questions. Number one, how would I want someone to live out their love for me if I was in the situation? You got to keep that question at the forefront of your mind. Maybe you'd say, I want them to keep their phone close in case I needed to call them for accountability, for help, for encouragement. Maybe be ready to call me a ride or pick me up if I get in a situation I shouldn't be in. Maybe you would want them to speak to an adult because this is bigger than either of you. And you need, I get it, you don't want to rat somebody out. But sometimes the right thing to do is to get help with the situations above. That's the loving thing to do. Maybe just stay involved for accountability, for encouragement throughout a long haul. That's powerful when people do that sort of thing. Either way, no matter what the situation is, if love is your filter, that's what you're going to be known for in that situation. That person's going to know they can keep coming to you for help, for encouragement, for rebuke when necessary, but all with humility, gentleness, and love. You do that, you'll fulfill the words Paul wrote by the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, and as I said, you will fulfill the will of Jesus Christ, because this is ultimately what he tells us to do, because it's what he does for us. As always, I want you to imagine what your schools, what your friendships, your families would look like if people did this. If everybody filtered their involvement, their words, their actions through love. We would say hard things to one another, not out of judgment, not out of hate, but out of love. It would change everything. We would keep people from regrets, from mistakes, from heartbreak, from negative consequences, and just maybe you would change somebody's eternity and future for the better. This is why Jesus tells us to do it. It's life-changing when done right. Let's be people, all of us, who let love be our filter in every situation. At the end of the day, gang, I want all of us to be known. I want this church, this student ministry to be known as people who let love be their filter. Every motivation, every word, every thought is filtered through the love of Jesus Christ. I want to help people who are hurting, not make it worse by coming in and condemning them, but by encouraging them, by getting in there and really helping them get back up. That's my cry. That's what Jesus calls us to do, and I hope you will do the same. Guys, remember your groups happen now from 7 to 8 p.m. I pray you're involved in that. Feel free to invite friends to those, and I can't wait to see you again. I hope you have a great week. I'm praying for you. I love you, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Hey guys, your life group leaders and I are working on an epic bit for next week. In the meantime, I have something special for you. Now, I did this once when we were meeting on Wednesdays, and some of you told me to never do it again, but here we are. In these bleak times, there is only one man who can truly lift our spirits and bring our hearts to laughter. Enjoy.
I'm Roman. Enjoy my dosage of humor for tonight's show, whatever you want to call it. What did the needle say after he won an argument? I proved my point. What did the bear say when he first met the hunter? Nice to maul you. What did Yoda say to Luke when he tried to eat his pasta with a spoon? Use the fork, Luke. Someone hit a home run on the baseball field, and I looked up and saw a round object coming towards me. Didn't know what it was at first, but then it hit me. How do you befriend a squirrel? Just act like a nut. What do snakes eat on camping trips? S'mores. What did the man say to the angry snowman? Chill out. What did the hat say to the other? You stay here, I'll go on ahead. Why did the lifeguard kick the elephants out of the pool? They kept dropping their trunks. What did the older chimney say to the younger? But you're too young to smoke. Thank you, my name is Roman. Don't be square, be around.